to work out and then call the meeting to order.
Today,
It's just the vice chair, yeah, so.
At this time, we will call the Crescent City, Florida Historical Preservation Board meeting to order June 12, 2023. We will have the approval of the minutes.
We have,
That shouldn't be on that.
no, we didn't have any minutes.
We don't have any minutes.
I have a question.
Yes.
Do we ever have minutes?
You've elected
Sounds
to.
good.
Okay, thanks.
So we don't have any minutes to approve. We will move to the next item on the agenda, which is our public comments. Do you have any guests in the audience to speak? So the first thing on the agenda is our new business. Number one, mission. So we discussed the mission of the Historic Preservation Board. Yes.
It's common for boards such as this to have a general mission statement. And so I have one I'd like to read and get your thoughts on. Okay? The Crescent City Historic Preservation Committee works to preserve the rich and significant historical, cultural, and architectural heritage of our town for future generations. How's that for a start?
That sounds good, that's nice.
Yes.
I think we need to figure out the exact name of what it is we are.
We are the Historic Preservation Board, correct?
Board.
Yeah, that's correct.
That's what,
Or,
yeah.
It is confusing, because it's just City Commission and Planning and Zoning Commission and everything else is boards. I think the
thank you.
one thing I would add there is instead of just for future generations, for maybe, say, for today's, or for current generations and the future, right at the end there.
Current and future.
Yeah, because I mean, we don't just want to do it for the future, we want everyone now to kind of, although the future is tomorrow, so, you know. I'm just thinking to the FPHS's, mission when we rewrote that, it was kind of like, we want to talk about today, and inform the people today, but also preserve everything for the future and share it, so, right? Does that make sense?
Do we make a motion then that we accept that, or?
Well, I would recommend that there's no hurry to adopt it, that we wait until our next meeting and then
Can you maybe?
amend it or.
Yeah, so we can all get a copy of it.
Yeah, Karen, if he sends that to you, can you distribute that to us all so we can look at it on paper?
It would be part of the minutes?
Or,
Yes,
Would or wouldn't?
yes,
okay.
it would be part of
It will be.
the
Okay.
but it's easier if he emails it to me.
You got it?
Thank you.
I would need to look at it and.
I think it would be all inclusive, really and truly. I mean, what we're doing is current, but when I looked at the purpose of the Historic Preservation Committee, I guess state, that was kind of in keeping with what you had pretty much verbatim.
Oh, good.
And it covers the cultural, historical,
Mhm.
architectural, so. I don't know that.
So we need to make a motion for every item on the new business agenda. As,
Or if you're making a decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or taking action of some sort. Like, if we discuss it next time and we want to adopt it, then we make a motion and vote.
okay. Okay, so the next item is responsibilities.
So on responsibilities, I think that, we're advocates for local ordinances, bylaws, public actions, and encourage the preservation, restoration, and reuse of historical properties, both public and private. So I see us as being the caretakers of historical properties in town. And and recommending, reviewing and recommending any changes that we feel are necessary. And perhaps there won't be any of it, but, looking forward, I think it's wise to be proactive.
And as far as our legislative, or as far as our legal responsibilities that are given to us by ordinance, Charles, could you maybe pull us in as far as that goes? Like, I know with the new land development code, we'll be in charge of certificates of appropriateness and those kind of things, and then reviewing demolition permits. That's already in the ordinance, that's already in place. But what are our actual responsibilities as far as what the ordinance and land development code points out?
I could go through it if you'd like. My recollection is, once we're a certified local government, you'll be the body that people will come to and say, I want my property designated, and you'll make a recommendation to the commission. We think this is or is not suitable for designation. You'll also then hear certificates of appropriateness. Someone says, I want to make some changes to my designated property. You'll review that for appropriateness, to either award with conditions or deny a certificate of appropriateness for the changes. Also, you will review demolition permits. And then something we touched on a little bit last week is just, you can promote historic preservation, education, and awareness, and assist property owners with, I've done things where we conduct seminars on how to fix your double hung windows or whatever. So, but legislatively, you will, if somebody wants their property on register or wants to create their block as a local historic district, they'll come to you. And then, once designated, any property that has a change will come to you for a certificate. And then if there's a demolition, one thing I did find out after your inquiry was, the county does not currently notify us when there's a demolition permit that's been applied for. So we're gonna ask them to please put a little flag on when they get an application to demolish something, they send us a notification.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
And you have that spreadsheet that I sent you with all the addresses of the current historic district buildings?
Yes, I do. And I included for you a copy of the current demolition permits you had asked about.
Yes, yeah, thank you very much, and the map.
There's only 4. County does not keep track of, there may be more permits out there, but they don't track that for some reason. This is just what we've asked for. There could be other demolition permits approved in the community, but they don't have any kind of a list that they track and send it to us.
So these are responsibilities when we become certified or?
Correct. Once you become a certified, you can't, we become able to designate once we're a certified local government. And that's when you don't need a certificate of appropriateness until you have designations.
And Charles, when might that be?
I don't know how long that takes. I mean, people tell me, oh, that's easy. It's pretty simple, but we haven't applied or not that familiar with the process yet. I did apply for the grant, but it's really to update the survey, and even that grant wouldn't be available, that money would be available in a year, so.
The first thing would be to beef up and actually adopt an entirely new historic preservation ordinance. Because there are 10 different requirements that are in there. If you go to the Department of State website, it tells you about certified local governments and what the requirements are. And it has very specific topics that have to be included in our historic preservation ordinance, which as of right now, as it stands, we do not have. And then
We have most of it, don't
we don't have any penalties for demolition by neglect or anything like that. We also don't have, it has to do with the makeup of your historic preservation board and the occupations of the people on it. But that we can put in there that if it's not available, because our community is so small, we might not have an architect or all that, that qualify. And it just has some, but there are definitely some things in there that we don't have.
Can that be shared with us?
Yeah, I mean, I had sent it, I can bring it for you, and send it to Karen.
I know initially we did speak about that, which is how we ended up becoming a part of the historic preservation
Yes.
board, because we're so small and we don't always have.
I suspect that's why they combined. It's hard to fill the board, would be my guess.
But yeah, there's definitely, and then after that, after we make the changes to the ordinance, we basically just have some paperwork to fill out and send to Tallahassee. Because I think you have to make sure that you meet at least 4 times a year. You have to make sure that your minutes are sent to Tallahassee every year kind of thing. There's just some requirements but the ordinance is the main thing, because we would have to write it, have the city commission first and second reading of it, so that,
Take a few months.
yeah.
Yeah, so maybe half a year, realistically.
So may I ask, on this map, the 4 locations,
Yes.
are they demolitions that the owners have asked, get a permit to demolish it? Or is this something that the city or somebody has said this is being demolished
These are at our request.
at your request?
Correct.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify that.
And for it to be condemned. not
Yeah,
necessarily-
We asked is that correct, Pam? We asked the building official to go look at this building. We think it's
Yes, that's correct.
a
I
problem.
called them and asked them to look at it to see if it was, a candidate to be condemned. And then they condemned those 4.
So when they condemn them, do they automatic demolish them, or they just,
No,
No, they've been
they
condemned a
still
while.
stay there and look awful?
Yeah, those still.
the building official will send a very lengthy, report, it's usually multiple pages, tells them everything that's wrong with the property and tells them that they have a certain amount of time to bring it up to code or to demolish it.
Oh, so, okay, so it does.
And that time varies.
And would that typically be a year, 6 months, a year?
It's usually 30 to 90 days.
Oh, that quick?
So if we, I don't know, if we looked at one of these, I happen to know that one house down there, and I don't think it's particularly historical. But if one of these others was a real, pretty much a historical thing, I mean, that's when we would look at it, try to step in or do something about it, or it's just going away because it's going away.
Yeah, at this point, the board, even in your review capacity, I don't know that you really have the ability to deny. What you want to do is get them to reconsider.
I'm just saying, if it was some wonderful structure, do we have any way to, help them or advise them or, do anything? Or is it just a matter of, you need to bring it up to code or demolish it? That's it.
That's it pretty much. So if it were in a redevelopment area, we might say, hey, we suggest grant application, things like that. But what it mostly does, in my view, is sort of slows down the rush to demolition where can you stop and think about this amendment? I think this place is pretty neat or pretty historic. So that's, you have to think twice about it, maybe think about there's other,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Okay.
And all of that, the review of the demolition permits is in place, that we have the power to do that now, that should be done now, right? That doesn't require us to come CLG to do that. That's in our historic preservation ordinance,
I think so. If it's in the National Register District, I think
if it's contributing structure.
yeah.
So this board, or do we make the recommendation to the county commission that acts on it?
As far as I know, it has to come before this board to get approval. So the person, if it's a contributing structure and say it's too far gone, the person has to make the case for why they, like for instance, the Bethel Inn, which was South Main Street, right across, down the street from you, or across from your block. And they applied for demolition permit and got removed. And as you know, that building was in pretty bad shape. There was,
So horrible.
yeah, there was probably no way to save it.
No.
So that's what they have to make a case to us that it's okay, and then we would grant approval of the demolition permit.
So
It's.
this board. would
This board,
do the
yes.
approval.
And I don't think they can appeal to the commission if
Right.
you were to say, no, you
Oh,
can't touch it.
Yeah. But the one thing is that it gives a time, like you said, it slows it down to kind of give us a chance to consider it. Because of course they'd have to come before the board and wait, or, and make their case before they just get it granted automatically. Because that is the case of that house, they applied to the building department and 2 days later they had the permit to demolish it. And that's because they were, we weren't communicating with them, they were communicating with us about, demolition permits and the addresses or something. So we had no way to stop it, so. But that's going to change.
Yeah.
We have the ability to do that now, so.
So, can I clarify? So one of our responsibilities is demolitions of all buildings or any building or just those that are historic?
Contributing structures to the National Register District. So there's 202 of them at the time they did the survey in 1995.
Mhm.
So, and it's basically the downtown core area, you know, they surveyed the entire, or like most of the town and the older buildings. But when you draw a district, they have to make it as concentrated as possible because you're always gonna have non-contributing structures, newer stuff that's in there. So they try and get it so it's the most concentrated. Like they surveyed all the way up Oakwood past my house and stuff, but that's not included because there's not enough old houses there. So they just draw a line, and as someone had pointed out, the Molly Morse's house was not in the district. It's much further up there in Hubbard Park, but it is listed individually. So our National Historic District our National Register Historic District has 202 at the time contributing structures to it. If anybody wants to tear one of those down, they have to come through us. It's
But
basically,
in addition, it's our responsibility for structures that we might deem important that are not included,
and once,
to send a flag out.
Okay, so those are those buildings that are not in the district, so we
we
can,
don't really have any control over that. Until we become a CLG, when we become a CLG, we can, declare a local historic district. And we can also suggest structures to be added to the National Register.
But my point is that we may not have any authority to make a decision on it, but however, we could make a recommendation to the commission.
We can always, we can always
We
reach
can
out.
always do that.
Yeah, we can always be proactive and reach out.
So we shouldn't overlook any.
Right.
Any building that we might think is important.
So prior to CLG status, your work would be to achieve CLG, get familiar with the application process, make recommendations to the commission on changes would be needed to the ordinance. And we gotta work out with our consultants, when we adopt a new code, it covers a lot of that. I don't know if it'll replace the ordinance yet or not. So we gotta work that out still, but it'll help you to become familiar with what's required to become CLG, so you know what we're lacking. And then meanwhile, certainly you can make recommendations and comments on things you either hear about an old house that's been tagged for demolition or, do educational sessions and so forth.
The requirements I have here, one of them is the makeup of the board. It says each certified local government shall have a commission with a minimum of 5 members whose area of geographic responsibility is conterminous with the boundaries of the local jurisdiction. For communities with a population less than 10,000, the minimum number of members may be reduced, but shall not be less than 3. All commission members must have a demonstrated interest in historic preservation. And it says that, they should be composed of professional and lay members. But, and it says, to the extent available in the community, the local government shall appoint professional members from the disciplines of architecture, history, architectural history, planning, prehistoric and historic archaeology, folklore, cultural anthropology, curation, conservation, and landscape architecture, or related disciplines, to the extent such professionals are available in the community. And if there's not, then we can use laypersons that have an interest. So that's, but we have to specify that in the ordinance. So there's a lot of several little things, and a lot of it is just commission meetings shall be held as necessary, but no less than 4 meetings a year. Vacancies shall be filled within 60 calendar days. So a lot of it is just paperwork and just having that all included in our ordinance, because it says that you have to specifically spell these things out. And as long as we tick those boxes, then we're in good shape. I'll send this to Karen. Because it is quite a bit, but when you read through it, then it's just a lot of specifics that I think would be most.
Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, I think the easy, and I think in my opinion, the easiest way to go about it would be to draft a new historic preservation ordinance instead of, and just adopt that, and supersede the last one. I don't know, it just seems very, the last one has already been amended several times, it's been several strike-throughs, and it just gets to be kind of even hard to read and figure out what it actually says, because of the additions and subtractions to it.
Well, and to further comment on that, there are so many strike-throughs on it that it almost eliminates it.
Yeah. And it just,
So your point's well taken.
yeah, and it just gets confusing, because, it'll strike through a whole bunch of stuff, and then it adds on something on the end of the sentence, and you're like, okay.
Exactly.
I was reading with our city attorney, and we had to read through it several times just to kind of figure out what it actually meant, so. Yeah, it's not perfect, for sure. I'll send this to Karen right now, so she can send it out. Sorry. Yeah.
Okay, any more input? Okay. All right. Okay, we'll move on to our goals.
So, in giving thought to goals, I've outlined 4 basic to begin with. And maybe they're enough, maybe we'll agree to add more. So the first is to continue to preserve the historic heritage of the community. That's a given, of course. To educate the community on the history of the Crescent City and historic preservation. We talked about the last time of how publicity in our cause is very important. And how the city now is taking advantage to get messages out. To form new partnerships with other agencies / companies to enhance historic preservation and to raise awareness of the program in the community. Obviously, companies are very important to us, and our local businesses. So the more that we can have them on board with our mission and cause, the better. And fourth, to utilize historic preservation as an economic tool. Obviously, we've all been to wonderful old towns and cities that have restored their properties, and it's how it's stimulated business and interest in the community is beneficial to all financially and the growth of the city.
Yes. To that end, Charles, as far as outreach and stuff goes, is there a possibility we can have a page put together on the website for historic preservation?
It's possible, I can find out from our
So we can, once we.
provider, if there's an
Yeah,
available.
once we get our mission statement put together and stuff like that, that'd be great to have it on there. Just, and we could probably work on some links maybe to some other sources of help, like the National Historic Trust and that kind of stuff.
Yes, the many agencies that are out there.
When the Historical Society did it's a QR code, or whatever they're called. So associated with that is a little blurb about each house, and it looks like that would be kind of an easy thing to pull that together and maybe feature a few of those houses on that.
Or we could link to it.
Yeah, or link to it, yeah.
But it's not easy to do, right?
No, it's not easy.
No,
But it's all there.
I'm just saying, already
It's
have put
easy now that
together
it's done.
something on
No,
a
no,
house.
that's true. And they're all, and those are all contributing structures, and the information came from our National Register listing, so.
But what we might do is to reach out to the owners of those properties and ask them to do research and to supply it to us. I can tell you with my old house on, that's what I'm doing.
Yeah, because I only had a little bit about your house. And then those houses that we did for the This Place Matters project were ones that were either members or people that we knew we could talk to. I mean, there's some houses and properties that are owned by someone that's not living here full time or something, that we didn't have a way to contact them, so, I kind of tried and took the easy route, the people that we could talk to, and knew, so, but there's 55 of them, so it's got a good amount.
Well, and there can be a lot more. I've reached out to some of my neighbors and it's sometimes not an easy sell,
Yeah.
surprisingly, but, I'm not giving up.
Well, I think, on that website, or the webpage in the city, it would be nice to be able to put that list of houses on there, so that people could even look it up and know if they're in the registered district. I know that there are some people that are not aware of it at all. I wasn't even aware the district existed until like 5 years ago, or not even.
And it may be more efficient, instead of crowding the city website, is to refer to the Preservation Society and have it there.
That sounds like a good idea.
That's all I had on goals, and again, I thought we could, I'll think about it and then bring it up at the next meeting.
Okay. All right, city codes,
Well, we've just discussed the importance of the ordinances and, to update them, and, I think we've had fine conversation on that, unless somebody else has something to add.
Thank you, Karen. She sent out, you guys have the CLG guidelines in your mailbox, or inbox.
Oh, thank you.
She's efficient.
okay, we'll move on to recommendations.
So, with this, line item, I think it's always good to have general recommendations, from the group, but also continued thoughts of what our purpose is.
And I think one of the biggest recommendations is to work on is attaining our CLG status. And that's something that,
That should be one of the goals.
yes. And I recommend that we make that a goal. How's that?
Yeah.
Sounds good.
You know, other recommendations,
So, so this line item, introduces the opportunity to recognize any structures that we feel are important and in need, or should be preserved, or on maybe it's a danger list. You know?
Yeah.
And I think it's important going forward that we have a list of properties that we're concerned about and that we rank them. So, later on in the agenda, we're gonna talk about the middle school. And I was pleased to learn that the cafeteria, the administration building are somewhat covered,
The gym, yeah, the gym, mission.
but the auditorium isn't.
Because
And so that's a big concern of mine. I'm sorry.
and it's just because of the timing when it was built, because they did the survey in 1995, the auditorium was built in 1956, so at the time that was not 50 years. It is now, so when we do our updated site survey next year, it would become part of the historic district, from what I understand. It's 50 years now, it covers anything built up to the 1970s.
So my question is, well, so I'd like to jump ahead to that. Oh, I'm sorry, did I interrupt? No. So I guess my question today is, what can we do today on that structure?
With the auditorium.
no,
Yes,
I don't think we have much that we can do.
and the commission,
The commission, there is, to my knowledge, there is and I'm not sure where it is, I think it's either in the comp plan or maybe it's on land development code. They can declare a site a local historic resource, right? Charles, is that something like?
Does not, it does not sound familiar.
There's somewhere, there is something that they can't, as far as I know, to this date, there's only like 2 places that they've done that to. But there is some sort of, I would have to find it,
Remember the 2 places.
I don't, because it's gotta be in the comp plan, I think that's what it is.
Yeah.
That, because there was some vagueness about where they were, I think one of them was, because everything else is a contributing structure or a site that's part of the historic district. I think there were 2 places, I think it was one of the cemeteries maybe, I don't know what the other one was. But it hasn't been done in a long time. And in the new land development codes, Charles, that we're adopting, there is still there's a stipulation for that, correct? Did that was a historic resource?
For the commission just to designate something?
Right.
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, I'll have to look and find it, because, I swear that was in something that we just read.
So the issue with Miller is declaring it a historical.
Well, right now, there's 2 buildings, the gym and the building 1, the administration building, what we think was the school, are contributing structures. So that would give it some protection. They would have to come and get a demolition permit, and also the rules of developing something in the National Register District are different. So they would have to meet the requirements that it looks and matches with the rest of the community and that kind of stuff. It is something that's doesn't have a lot of teeth, but yet still there are some sort of regulations in there. But the auditorium does not have anything, basically, it's just a building.
And that's my big concern today, particularly since that property they're not gonna build a school there. So it's unknown what's gonna happen to that property.
So just for instance, if it is declared a historical building, then who takes ownership? Or is it this committee?
No.
And who takes ownership of the upkeep of the building?
No, the owner would still belong, it would still be, it just would give it protection from demolition or alteration and stuff without having to come here first. And I'm sorry,
I'm just thinking, so if the school, because I think about the, Central Academy, it's historic and it's just falling down, so I'm just asking, so, so that would not happen for us. We declare it historical,
but it's still
and it's
good.
still in the possession of the school district.
And if they didn't wish to spend any money on it, it could still fall apart like Central Academy has. Because Central Academy is even on the National Register as an individual property. So, it's in the line.
It's the first, accredited high school in the state of Florida.
Oh, my word.
Yes,
Wow.
and I just don't understand that.
What a shame.
And I mean, just a few years ago, the roof was on it, now it's all just collapsed, it's all just falling in.
Well, that's the danger, these things happen so quickly. And so, again, my concern is if that property is sold, how wise and better would it be for us to have some protection on those 3 buildings?
And the one other thing that, in our historic preservation ordinance, it changed the requirements for asking to be added to the National Register, and it says that it has to be done by the property owner. So, unless there's some other, stipulation that I can find in the comp plan, really, the school district would have to ask for that to be added.
Or whoever they sell it.
Or whoever they sell it to, right? But I mean, really, if you're a developer, there's no incentive for you to have it added.
Well,
Unless you're gonna do,
there could be.
I mean,
A good developer could see the potential.
but as I understand now, it's
Say
just
an excellent developer.
the south 5 acres that they've put on the market or was intending to. I'm hoping that we can, as a city and community, be able to acquire that ourselves. And then this wouldn't be an issue, because we would be able to turn it into a community center and everything else. A civic, gathering place,
That would be wonderful.
city hall and everything else. So,
What a benefit to our community.
it would definitely, I mean, it makes a lot of sense to me, I don't know.
I believe
There's a lot of options.
taking over
Yeah.
both sides.
It has a lot of potential, and that's why we have to all come together and figure out what we all want and how we can get it, which I think can be done.
So can we further review to see what actions we might be able to take?
Yeah, I'll try and take something.
And can we check to see if it's in the hands of the property owner?
Well, that,
I'm sure you're right.
Yeah, that's,
Yes. I think there also is some miscommunication. I think there's some miscommunication. If you talk to a property owner that's not necessarily in the know and say, you know, have you thought about putting your property on the National Registry? They panic that somebody's going to take it over or tell them what they can do. You know, there's a fear there. And so I think it's up to us to also
Educate them.
educate
Yes.
people so they understand that, you know, nobody's gonna take their property over or anything like that.
Yes.
I like the idea of education, I think that it's something that we all need more. Like I was saying, I didn't even realize there was a district that existed. I knew that it was always the historic part of town, we had brown signs, but like, there wasn't anything that I could find until looking into the whole thing. And I even printed out the map and I have it hanging on my wall, so you can see which buildings are contributing, which buildings are not. And just, like, I didn't even know the buildings across the street, I knew the brick building, the old people's bank, but these other buildings where Cricket is and all that stuff, those are historic, those are in the National Register. And the other building over, the Andrew Abandon's Tax, and I never realized that they were built in 1932 or 1926 or something. Habs Cafe was over here before it moved down the street, and I just thought they were just concrete buildings that were built, you know, sometime in the 70s or something. But they're over 100 years old now. And that was green, which I don't think it was ever meant to be green, but that's not for me to say. Although I just said it. But this building, the one right to the left of People's Bank here, the gray one with those big windows,
Oh, yes, yeah.
which used to be the ice cream place in there, and Habs was in there first too, and then we moved next door. I mean, and then what, you know, you don't really notice it, especially down to the gray, it kind of just blends in. But I was standing here looking at it the other day, and I was like, well, you really can tell, like, those arched windows are unique. Those are something that you don't see in just normal buildings. And I just always took it for granted, but then I started looking at it, this is really a beautiful building. If it was a dark gray, it would probably look a little better, but at least it, you know, it's been taken care of for the most part, because I thought it was a lot newer than it was. So I think, I mean, the education part of it is really important, especially to the people that live in the district that don't even realize the age of their houses.
And educating people and helping them come on board with the community and get excited about their own property. You know, their own property is valuable and important.
I agree.
Yeah, maybe when that time comes, we can come up with something like, to put like this house was built in 1905 or, you know, something to display that. I think that would be, you know, really
That
nice.
was something that, Commissioner DeVito and I were talking about with FPHS, kind of sponsoring and running the program, and then with the city's, assistance or approval, just because it's something that's done in a lot of historic districts. And we just want to make sure that we have a design that's, uniform, that, you know, you can have on each house.
Mhm.
And I've done research into the cost of them, and they can be kind of pricey, but I know a lot of people. There's already Amy Heath, who owns the St. John's Realty down the street here. She wants one for her building as soon as we do it, and Lisa DeVito wants one as well. So I mean, there's interest in it, and I think it would be something that we need to get started. We just gotta make sure it's all uniform and stuff like that, but that's something that I can work on and figure guys in on and bring it to you. Because it's just something that helps and make, like with the education and outreach, it makes everybody aware of it. Because you'll see those little plaques, and we put the QR codes on them, which is fun. I asked the Forge people, whatever, people that make the metal, Because it's funny, they have metal ones and then they have ones that are plastic, then they dip in metal and like, and it's not even coated, it's like fused to it, which makes it lighter and easier to work with, but it lasts just as long. But I asked about the resolution, like, can they do a QR code with all the little dots and stuff in it? And they said they can do anything, you know, and it would work. So I was kind of impressed with that and interested.
Nice.
So I just have to research it further.
The other thought for the future, it would be nice to have a map of the historic district and walking tours. And, maybe even a bicycle one.
We do have a walking tour map, right?
I do, we have a brochure in the lobby.
How many of those are left, do you know?
The walking tour?
Yeah,
There's a lot.
okay.
So
Because
that's unfortunate.
when we run out, can we,
It's limited.
yeah, well, that's also,
We'll live on one
it's
hour.
also not correct on all this stuff. But they're just
Thank
locations.
you for going there.
Yeah, sorry,
That's just, no, you're right, yeah.
I'm a stickler for correction, sorry, and grammar, and also the location of the houses, the dots are in the right spot, but it is
Other than that,
yeah, other than that, I mean, for the most part, it does cover some houses that are historic that you can see, but it would be hard to make something that covers every single, like I said, there's 202 structures, but still, it's something that.
One day.
Yeah, I mean,
Particularly if we have signage.
well, also with the update, we're gonna find out how many of those structures are gone, because I have a feeling it's a pretty large percentage, but we won't really know until we do it. I haven't driven around and looked at all 202 of them. Personally.
Okay. New historical recommendations, nominations.
So, with this, there is the structure on North Main, the lodge that was relocated.
The blue, or the new moon. What's called the blue.
The
Lodge.
New Moon Lodge.
The new moon
Oh,
lodge.
the blue next to it.
What is the status of that? I mean, it's a wonderful building.
Mhm.
What's the status of it? Do we know?
Just making preparations to renovate it. So, with grant money,
Because the city owns it, right?
yeah, the
Concerned
city,
The city owns it.
yeah,
The
but
concerned citizens are going to
trying to, work into the requirement so we can utilize it.
renovate it, yeah, so.
What, the city owns it now?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's a question of money. to
Yes.
Restore it.
Mhm.
And, so grants, maybe even a fundraiser.
We're doing fundraisers, but any fundraisers.
you all did a fundraiser.
Yes, so, yes, we did one, actually on May 20th, so, so different fundraisers.
And did you guys, do a grant application for a special?
I think, a structure grant is being applied for the building to see what we need to do.
Well, we were gonna apply for that DEO planning grant, which we wouldn't get for over a year. So what we decided to do is we're gonna make application for, the CRA grant program, the ARPA funds of the CRA grant program, to try to get the funds to hire an architect to create a plan. The plan is the first thing, somebody to analyze the building and give us a plan of action, the necessary steps to restore it.
To be able to go and get grant money at that
So we'll
point.
probably ask for $50,000 or something. The city approved Rescue Act money for economic development, and it's not limited by CRA funds. We couldn't spend on a city property, but ARPA funds you can, so it's.
So an architectural review and, with that, a budget.
Yeah, that'll become like, here's what our task is, quantified, because right now we're just, wow, it's gonna be all the work.
Yeah, this is what's.
And so someone's, until the engineer looks at it,
Right.
and tells.
What are the plans when, suppose you get your grants and get it restored, what are the future plans for the use of the structure?
It will serve as a resource building, resources for, could be mental health, a building where people can go and meet. In the past, we have, done things like housing for people that needed housing. We different, other outreach stuff, let's see.
After school,
We're out, yeah, after school. So what we're a resource organization, we currently don't have a building, to meet the needs of, you know, the people. We are an organization that serves everybody in the community, wherever we can. So that, hopefully it will also lead to being able to doing something for the elderly, once a month or something like that.
So, like, community
So
resource
it's gonna
center.
be a community resource, center, a small facility, but, to serve wherever we can, so.
Madam Chairman, is the outreach organization, is that a government or a nonprofit agency?
No, it's the Concerned Citizens of
Oh,
South
it's
Putnam.
concerned citizens.
Yes,
And
so
they're
everything on
501c3.
this side of the,
So they're non-profit,
we're not,
so you're 501?
yes, we're 501, C3, so, yes,
Oh, that's good.
Yes.
Wow.
yes.
Great.
So that's what we
Yeah,
want for, because
very
right now we utilize,
Yeah,
other meeting places, so we would like to have our own, facility.
Is the roof secured or to the point, because I know it did have quite a hole in it, right? Did you?
we closed it.
Okay,
Yes,
so it's
We're
temporary.
preparing to brace the rafters.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure it wasn't leaking or there wasn't any further damage going on. I know that you guys and a few other, a lot of people cleaned up around there, did a ton of cleaning up, and it looks a lot better than it did.
yes,
And also you cut some of the trees, right, some of the branches that were overhanging.
Yeah.
Kind of came out there.
yes, mhm.
Yeah, 'cause I know that was Jim Steggy's, one of his,
That's great.
his
Yes,
focuses.
yes.
are there any other structures in town that we should be concerned about at this time?
Off the top of my head, I can't,
Maybe, what used to be Nettles Store, which was a grocery store that serviced the community.
Where,
It's on, Cedar Street.
Yeah.
So.
Is that the one with no roof?
Right,
The black one?
yes.
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it's,
Yes,
it's,
so-
it's masonry, right, it's concrete block.
Right, yes, so,
Yes,
I
that's
remember shopping.
it was a grocery store.
Yeah.
Barbara Scholl's.
Yeah, Troy did, her first husband, Troy did own it, but it was, actually, it was Sackett's. And then it became, when he bought it, it was Nettles. So, yeah, so but before that, so people always call it good back and forth Sackett's and Nettles, so, yes. Yeah.
And the spread house is, of concern.
Yes, it is a concern.
Uh, I'm not sure what is currently going on, but I know that, wasn't there someone that came into the, or was?
Yeah, I'd say someone interested in purchasing.
They pulled it off the market to make some improvements.
Okay.
And, cause all their offers are coming in really low. So they've been making improvements to it. We are meeting with somebody there this week, but, we've done that before, so we'll see. So it's still for sale, just not currently listed because they've been making repairs that need to be done.
What type of repairs are they making?
There was one interior bathroom where they hadn't, the lighting was all falling down, they hadn't finished that. There was some siding they recently repaired, it was rotting. So I'm not sure the extent of the other repairs, but it was, I'm hoping some of the second floor wasn't like cleaned out with stuff to show it. I'm hoping they're doing that sort of thing just to show it, make it show better.
Yeah, there was a lot of, I went through it, there was a lot of clutter.
That back at the top, I guess it was the
Yeah,
owner's residence was,
Even the front rooms.
yeah, they were kind of set up for B&B. You still have the towel rolled up on the
Yes,
fan,
yeah.
it's kind of creepy, but
There's some the problem, I don't want to talk too much about it.
yeah,
There's some life safety problems
so there.
with it because of its age. You can't have a railing for a stair that's down right
And I think that in the past, some things have not necessarily been done permitted wise or code, just.
Well, it was, when you look at it, there was the home that's in front, 2-story. Then they added a 2-story wing.
Right.
Then they added another portion. And then between it all, they added these little outcroppings.
Mhm.
In Maine, they call them warts on buildings. And, anyway, so you have to get a central framing system, so it's all tugging at one another. And,
Causes things to sag or kind of, so.
yeah, so I guess I won't say anything more about it, actually.
But it is a concern,
Yeah.
because it is deteriorating.
Right. Well, and it's for it, anytime you turn that air conditioner off in the building, it's gonna cause problems after too long. It just is, I'm glad to know that they're still working on it.
Yes, and I hope they find a buyer that's interested in it historically and can, wants to bring it up to snuff.
It is beautiful, it's still a
It is
beautiful
gorgeous.
building, and
It's a jewel to our community.
you used to live right kind of corner there from the apartments, and every morning I woke up to see it, and I'm just like, it's just a neat looking building. Those oak trees around it too are amazing.
Well, it's, an inn is a place that everyone in town can meet.
We used to have every lunches there. We were,
Yes, yeah, I heard, yeah.
Now, who currently owns?
it's on,
And,
maybe,
Jeff Haskins,
Haston, is it Haston?
Aston.
Yeah, so on, my dad's old house on 18 North Lake Street, right over there,
Mhm.
so. But they're not living here full time, I think they live in Florida as well.
All right, inventory of condemned properties.
So that's what the SNAP is.
Yes, and thank you for this fine, report. And, and I was also pleased that there are only 4 that we know of.
So that we requested it.
So we kind of addressed this one already. Or is that-
Yes,
Yeah.
Okay. Like current,
We're not here on a lot of this.
I think we can skip that
it's good.
unless somebody has anything on it. I mean, we're sort of covered
Okay,
in our general discussions.
so current and pending.
Exactly, yeah.
And other, right.
Yeah, Miller as well.
Okay, so we'll talk about.
Yes, yeah, again, though, it's so important that we protect that, auditorium and that we look to further protect the other 2 buildings and all 3. So I guess when we, the other opportunity may be, when we remap the historic district, that hopefully that will also be an opportunity to recognize that, but, and leading into that, when might that start?
Charles, the grant would be awarded until July
24.
24 next year, right?
Oh, so it's at least a year.
They were due June 1st. And then it has to be, there are steps that happen during the year, it's not like.
Sure.
They score them and rank them, I think, sometime later this year.
We'll know by July, I think, but if we don't get it, then
But we'll know our ranking before that, because they list the scored and ranked, grants before the legislative session.
So when would that be, date-wise?
By like February, I think and it has a,
February of next year, of course, yeah.
I mean, it's not gonna be too soon. I think it takes October to November for them to do the scoring, because you have a group of professionals that go sit down and do the scoring of it. But as far as I know, this year, I think they funded the whole list, I believe. They funded most of the list except for like 3 things.
And we're on the list.
So I'll probably apply for a grant, I'm saying that this last fiscal year.
Oh, I see, the past, yeah.
If you
Yeah.
you go to the Department of State's website, it has the ranking, and it shows you, it has this last year's list. And I think you went like 3 or 4 pages down before this, where the cutoff was, there's maybe like half a page of people that weren't funded. And so, I mean, we'll probably have a pretty good idea if we're gonna get it or not, I think, by the end of this year. I'm guessing.
And I assume that it's an outside consulting agency that comes in and does it.
Well, there's, that's what, last time there was an architect guy that came in. I think there was volunteers that assisted with it though, from the city, and Mary Braddock was one of them. I think it was a group of 4 or 5 of them that went around and helped.
Was it somebody within the state?
I'm sorry?
Was the architect someone
Yes,
within the
I think it
state?
was from Gainesville.
Oh, okay.
There was a firm, I think that, is that where, was that where most Charles, do you know?
I don't know, we'll issue an RFP.
Oh, I see, yeah,
But it was, I mean, there's plenty of people in the state that do it, so,
oh, fine,
you know.
All right, historic district. Any review timeline?
I think we just covered that.
Okay, and, start there, okay.
Actually, I'm looking it up right now for national dates, but.
Okay.
Yeah.
Grants, status updated from Charles Rudd.
Any news?
I submitted the application, that's it.
Okay. That's all you can do.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Architectural and site guidelines.
This gets back to our earlier discussion. The more that we can give meat to guidelines to protect our historic buildings, the better off we're going to be. Now, I'm not one to overwrite and to be over, critical or hardship, but there is a certain level that is justified to protect.
When, our LD, the LDCs that we're reviewing now, there should be an additional architectural and site guidelines part. Right?
Yeah, there will be.
I mean, I've lived in some communities where it's ridiculous. The color, architectural detail, certain periods, I mean, you actually had to be very wealthy it was on the island in Nantucket. And, which is a great whaling community historically, but, the restrictions they put on, you have to be excessively wealthy.
I don't think they're gonna be, our new ones are not gonna be much more restrictive than just updating what we have now, correct?
Yeah, we currently have architectural standards and what it references, kind of a short list of styles, generally,
8 or 9, colonial and,
for residential.
for frame vernacular, the ones that are basically what we have here, Italianate, which is my favorite, but,
And commercial is pretty general.
We should be looking at mid-century,
right, because it's changing, yeah,
because it's old now.
yeah. And the 70s are historic now, so I just keep saying that for all of you guys. Just to rub it in.
And land use and zoning maps.
We have no update to Charles?
In terms of new maps,
Right.
you're correct, yeah, we won't, in fact, even when the land development code is adopted, the changes, the map did the same, it would take further actions to amend.
The new categories that we're adding are just there so we can, if people want to change to them.
And new annexations, new developments, and so forth.
Building permits.
Anything new in regards to historic preservation, a building permit?
No, nothing new. I don't know if you knew, we contract with the county for our building department's services. So, we're just working to improve that communication. They got a new building official and so,
And at the
at the county,
county
yeah.
office, do we, think that we will consider going back to having ours here and,
Well, what we looked at was contracting that out as well, like we do planning. The challenge for us was, and we found out we'd have to also find a fire inspector because the county has intertwined theirs
okay,
from a staff perspective, so we couldn't keep doing our fire inspection and not do our building inspection. So we decided to stick with the county. They've been improving service. They've made some changes of personnel.
Mm-hmm.
They've replaced their building official and they kind of restructured the whole thing under their former fire director, who's been very efficient. So they think he'll bring new efficiencies to the process, try to speed up the process. They get a lot of complaints how long it takes to get a building permit. So they assure us they're working on that.
Okay.
That's why I was gonna ask the question, is that, you know, I know it's been made, you know, and I've heard this before, that it's very difficult to build in here. Would you say it's more difficult per the city guidelines, or things that are going through the county? And, you know, do we have any control over that, you know, as far as obtaining permits?
I believe it's, I'm not trying to blame the county, but we have so few projects that we review in terms of site plan. You all know that it comes to you. Mostly we write a letter saying the zoning is appropriate or the setbacks are appropriate. But they had an example in the county was they had one floodplain manager. So every single project that came through was funneled through one person. So there was a log jam for floodplain review. And so those are things they're looking at and discovering and making those fixes so things will flow through quicker is the goal.
So it's not our requirements that.
It's not our requirements, it's the process.
Bureaucracy of the processes and lack of. And I think really, we wouldn't be able to get a better deal for every contractor going on.
It'll be more expensive for our applicants if we go private. The private
May not
engineer,
be more efficient.
And
they may not be.
especially if it's, you know, even if it was DEF CON or something, that's, or, I don't know if they do that, but they're most likely not gonna be locally, you know, and Placa is closer than anything else I think we would get.
We had actually approved a contract with Universal Engineering, which is a very large firm. I think they handle either Pearson or Bunnell, some local communities. But then we found out we'd go without a fire inspector, and so we had to put the brakes on that and talk to the county some more, and so we decided to stick with the county.
Well, it is encouraging the changes I think they're making up there. I mean, only time will tell, but it seems like they're at least trying, so.
All right, land development code.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
Charles, how many more meetings do we have? How many more chapters do we have?
I think, yeah.
Sorry, I have to.
That sounded like a plea.
I have to do grammar corrections on all of them.
This Thursday at 3B and 8.
Yeah.
3B is a meaty chapter, a lot of different things in there. And 8 is mostly, I just forget that word, concurrency. So, I think there's 2 more after that. I believe July might be your last.
And is that the architecture and site guidelines or
I'm
that?
not sure, I have to look at it, but we're getting near the end, then
I hope so.
it'll probably be with the commission for a while. I think
Our part's done, at least. My part's done.
But just as an aside, we are having a meeting the end of next week with Moonshine Acres Landing to, for the RV park. So I'm expecting that to be on your agenda in July.
That's good.
Fingers crossed.
Is that the proposed name? Moonshine Acres?
Moonshine Landing, actually.
Oh, Landing.
He has another property called Moonshine Acres, I think. in this-
Where is that located?
It's in,
Ocala?
no,
Well,
it's,
it's-
Union County, I think.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, it's
further
northwest of here.
northwest of.
So I mean, you're having a meeting that they want to move, have a place here? or-
Yeah.
No, we're doing the final review of their site plan
It's
with our
the-
engineers and our,
Alice, it's the 10 acres, if you go south on 17, right there on the left that they've cleared out, right past, you know, Prospect and Junction.
So they're the ones that were going to have like a 5-star restaurant or something in there, weren't they?
Yeah, they're gonna have a restaurant, I believe.
it's gonna be barbecue. I don't know about 5-star, but hopefully it's good.
Another barbecue.
But it's a, you know, it's an RV site with pull-in and back-in sites for big RVs, as well as clamping. I mean, it's similar to the facility they have already, which is, from what I can tell, very highly regarded, so.
Oh, you mean the one they have?
The one they have currently in Union or Stratford, or one of those counties, or, it's, yeah, I looked at the website, it's always booked, I tried to see what, and those glamping tents are very popular,
Oh, yeah, that's
which
extremely.
I'm not gonna do that, but. They do have accessible ones, so if I wanted to, I'd rather give me a hotel, please. No more climbing for me. I was a Boy Scout, I did enough of that.
Okay,
I have a question. You guys gonna meet, the historic board, you guys gonna meet separately next month because there was the development code again? Like this month, where you don't,
I think we probably accomplished
with
more this way, don't you?
Well, and
the historic preservation was not meeting this Thursday because they took that meeting and put it here.
I mean,
I just need to know for the record,
Yeah.
so I can
So-
be sure.
I like
My-
meeting separately, but
because I mean, I have to admit, after the land
It's up to
development,
you,
I
because
was tired. I mean, it's hard to.
you're doing the time and a half, so if this is better, more convenient. My only concern is that, I only ask that you bring to our attention any issues in the land development code review.
from the planning and zoning.
Exactly, that pertain to us here.
But with the architecture and site guidelines, would that be something that is gonna go through? Are we all gonna do together, Charles?
I'd take a look at it.
Because I mean, it kind of does have a effect on the historic feel, historic structure, and historic,
Well,
right?
I'll have to talk to the planners because there's a new law came out, you cannot apply design standards to properties that are not in a historic district, a CRA, or a private HOA, so it wouldn't apply citywide, so there may be two sets of standards, whereas preservation standards might have a little different flavor than general city design standards, yeah.
Have to meet on that together.
So you may find you end up promoting something.
so the question is, when does the historic
You wanna know?
for the record board meet again?
I mean,
I think
This-
the issue
the
was,
Monday thing, like, this actually worked for me. I don't know. Did everybody else?
and we're only meeting separately until we get through the land development code,
Yeah,
right?
I think so.
Is that okay?
And that's the way I understood it, because the last meeting was very long, lengthy, and then by the time we got to,
Historic
you all
preservation.
think everybody was probably hungry and tired, and
Well, we all tried to express the meeting.
I mean, it was just a lot, and then you all had to sit that long time.
Well, yeah, we've had more.
I don't mind watching, but.
I think we've had a more fruitful discussion today than we would have
Yes,
at
yes, I mean,
Thursday's
yeah.
meeting, so.
Yeah.
I know, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So should we do two separate meetings?
I think, at least until we're through it, land development code. Can I make a motion to that effect?
We may not meet, the historic board may not need to meet every month. Or are you thinking it does need to meet every?
At least, or maybe.
I think that our meetings can be very condensed and efficient, but I think we need to move the purpose along. And it's, we need to develop it. I mean, it doesn't mean that we can't take a break, a month here and there, but I think in general, we should proceed.
Like, we wanna get some of that stuff together, our objectives and our mission and stuff, so. I think, and until we can review this CLG, maybe and work on that, I think monthly, we probably need to. I mean, the CLG thing, we kind of need to.
And the ordinance.
Yeah, that's fine, the ordinance.
Yeah, that's-
CLG, yeah. I mean, is the same, like, we do the same Monday thing like we did this week?
Today, in July?
Yeah.
What day would that be?
That would be
July 10th,
July
July
17th.
17th.
July 17th would be the same week as P and Z.
Yeah.
We do the
July
10th.
17th.
The 10th would be the Monday.
But,
Right.
but no, that's for the commission, but if they wanted to do on the same week,
Yeah, that's what I was going for. So
That's
it's-
the planning and zoning, that would
Planning
be
and zoning,
July
zoning.
17th.
Yeah, so the 20th, so Monday would be the 17th.
I'm good.
I'm good with the 17th.
Okay,
Does 4 work good for everyone?
Yeah, I'm ready for it.
July 17th at 4?
At 4?
Okay.
Does that work for everybody?
Yes.
Okay, I'll set it.
Okay. Alrighty.
Do we need to make a motion as far as that? Would you like us to make a motion? Yes, I move that we have separate meetings and that we do it on the Monday before, at least for the next few months.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, it has been motion and second that we have our meetings on the Monday prior to the planning and zoning meetings, each month until we, all matters and documents are gathered.
Or until we say otherwise, I guess.
Huh?
Or until we say otherwise.
Until we say otherwise.
We wanna have a vote.
We have a vote, Ms. Karen.
We don't need roll call?
Roll call, yes.
Okay. Alice McCoy,
Yes.
Dan Dodge,
Yes.
William Maury.
Aye.
Jimmy Hardy. Yes. Veronica Glover.
Yes.
Okay, all right.
General discussion? Huh?
I said, I think we did one.
Did that?
Yeah, we had a good
Okay.
Can I have one, I mean, are we going to wait until planning and zoning and figure out for what we're doing with chairman, or chairperson, sorry, excuse me. I guess, right?
Yeah.
That's gonna be on our agenda on Thursday.
On Thursday.
And I guess, and we're also waiting for the city commission to appoint another planning and zoning member, slash, what?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, the commission will, that'll be the city commission. So you, this Thursday, you guys need to elect a chair, and July commission will consider filling her vacancy.
Now, do you advertise people that want to be on the planning and zoning?
We put it on the website, which generates a social media post and an email and a text and a bunch of other automatic triggers.
So that's already on the,
Yeah, that there's a vacancy. We've already got a couple applications in.
right?
And if there's anybody that you know that you don't want to talk to outside of here.
That's true.
So I move that we adjourn, I'm the chairperson.
Second.
Okay, it has been motion and second that we adjourn the meeting.
It was a very productive meeting.
Yes.
Yes, I think it was.
Thank you.
Yeah, very enjoyable too.